Some signs that a person may be a victim of human trafficking are similar to the signs of physical and sexual abuse from domestic violence or intimate partner violence, but there are some slight differences between them. Intimate partner violence at first seems like a boyfriend or girlfriend type of relationship, but will develop into a situation of control, a behavioral pattern of assault and coercion that may include physical injury, psychological abuse, sexual assault, progressive social isolation, stalking, deprivation, intimidation and threat, and shame felt on the part of the victim. However, signs that a person may be a victim of human trafficking are as follows. Does he or she present with a health problem that trafficking in person victims might have? In other words, evidence of trauma. They may be reluctant or unable to explain their injuries, multiple sexually transmitted infections, unusual infections such as tuberculosis, late presentations of illness. Does he or she have poor hygiene or show evidence of malnutrition? Sometimes victims are forced to go without showers for days on end while being raped 5, 10, 15, sometimes 40 times a day each by different buyers. Is he or she accompanied by another person who seems controlling? It can be male or female. Does the person accompanying them insist on being the one to give the information to healthcare providers? Does the potential victim seem submissive or fearful? And this next slide shows tattoos of girls who were trafficked. So does the victim have any significant tattoos or keloids from branding? Building rapport and gaining the trust of the victim is vital. It takes time, commitment, and integrity to build a relationship. But once a victim tells you they are being trafficked, it's very important to reassure them by saying something like this. I believe you. You don't deserve to be treated this way, and you are not alone in this. There is help available, and we can help you through this process. What to include on a proper protocol on intervening with a potential victim of human trafficking includes measures to separate potential victims from the accompanying party, identification and training of personnel, collaboration between multiple professions and multiple governmental and non-governmental agencies is important because approaching human trafficking from just one or two angles is inefficient. It's insufficient for giving the victims the proper treatment they need and the restoration they need in order for removing the perpetrators from their lives. It's likely that your intervention in the life of one victim could also lead to the rescue of multiple victims who are in captivity. Collaboration includes, but is not limited to, law enforcement, social services, mental health professionals, child protective services, faith-based NGOs, dental health professionals, and so on. Establish criteria regarding when to contact law enforcement and contact information on local service organizations that specialize in helping human trafficking victims. I want to tell you a story of a girl named Jill. The names and places have been changed to protect her identity, and the slide I'm about to show you is not her, but all of the other details of the story are real. Jill was a runaway teen at the age of 14, escaping physical and sexual abuse at home. She was homeless before she was approached by a man named Bruce at a shopping mall. He promised to provide help and work for her. With few options, Jill went with Bruce. She was taken to his office, which was a cellar in his home. She was hung by her wrists from the ceiling with leather straps, which is a common tactic traffickers use in order to break their victims like you would break a horse. Traffickers will also do what they refer to as grooming or seasoning by showing their victims constant images and videos of pornography and often getting them addicted to drugs and alcohol. Jill was stripped, beaten, and tortured until she agreed to work as a prostitute. Torture included being hung by her neck, which resulted in permanent scarring and damage to her vocal cords, affecting her speech. Once she agreed to serve as a prostitute, Bruce brought paying clients into his home to have sex with Jill. During the next 3 years, she suffered horrible torture and repeated rape by clients of Bruce. Some clients would pay extra to do unusual things to Jill. Jill eventually became pregnant. Bruce attempted to perform an abortion, and being unsuccessful, Jill began to hemorrhage. Bruce took her to an emergency room in Los Angeles. In order to protect himself and his control over Jill, Bruce needed to come up with a good cover story. His story was that he claimed he was Jill's older brother and that both of their parents had been killed 2 years prior in an automobile accident. As a result of the accident and sudden loss of her parents, Jill suffered from schizophrenia. Bruce was the only relative she had, and he often had to tie her down so she wouldn't run away. Because of her schizophrenia, Jill would often hallucinate about very strange things, like being held captive. Story accepted without hesitation. But if a closer look had been taken, there were many clues that were missed and pieces to the story that just didn't fit. Were her scars from abuse or restraint? Marks of strangulation are only the result of abuse, never restraint. You could say it was from suicide, but there were still more clues that just didn't add up. Permanent scars on the wrist and ankle do not occur from restraint. They result from abuse. Bruce does all the talking. This is a huge red flag when interacting with potential victims. And here is the major oversight. If Bruce is caring for her full time, how did she get pregnant? The pieces of the puzzle just don't fit. So why was this missed? Was the staff too rushed? Was there a lack of concern? Were they overwhelmed? They didn't want to get involved, or they just didn't think that they could keep Bruce and Jill there if they tried to leave. What a proper assessment looks like is direct questioning of Jill alone, mental health consult to perform diagnosis of schizophrenia, social services consult to confirm the story of her parents' death, involvement of law enforcement to determine accurate identities and any prior pertinent record of criminal activity. Jill was in the hospital for 3 days. She was taken to the OR for uterine dilation and cutterage to remove the remaining products of conception. She received several units of blood due to the failed abortion performed by her trafficker, and she received antibiotics to prevent infection. While in the hospital, no mental health consultation was performed. Jill was interviewed regarding her injuries without Bruce present. Jill was never interviewed regarding her injuries without Bruce present. No social services consultation was performed, and Jill was discharged from the hospital without her having the ability to become free from her captor. Jill was finally freed after 3 years of captivity by police on a drug raid to Bruce's home. Jill was found bound and gagged in a closet. All this occurred prior to Jill reaching the age of 18. Those of us who live in freedom are responsible for those who don't. Our situational awareness and the decisions that we make when victims or perpetrators of human trafficking come across our path are what is exactly needed to save the lives of those victims of modern-day slavery. If one person can spark a movement that can change the world, and we can all make the decision to step up and do our part, we can make a difference. We cannot face this issue alone, but imagine what we could do together. Greg Haljan of IJM says that sometimes when we are in our darkest moments of injustice, what's really happening is that injustice is beginning to crumble and that a tipping point is being reached in which the light is going to break in and sweep away the injustice. If you need more resources, I have those available in the back of the room, and I would like to end with this final thought. William Wilberforce once said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you may never again say that you did not know." Thank you very much, and may God richly bless you.